In a world increasingly shaped by climate challenges, we are all exposed to new risks. But some of us are more vulnerable than the others. Hello and welcome. I'm Sathika Tiwari and you're watching Eco India. A 2023 WHO study shows that climate change is one of the biggest global threats to public health. But efforts are being made to tackle these challenges, and in today's episode, we will see some of them. Mumbai, the city of dreams, skyscrapers, and sea breeze, is now struggling to catch its breath, quite literally. With increasing pollution and booming construction, the health of its residents is now at stake. But it's not just Mumbai. Of the world's 100 most polluted cities, 63 are from India. But what does it mean for us, who breathe this air every day? And can it be linked to chronic metabolic diseases like diabetes?
Environmentalist Stalin D is measuring the level of emissions in the air. He is at a cement compound in the eastern part of India's megacity Mumbai. The gauge shows 195. The Mumbai Air Quality Index rates that as unhealthy.
Simple comparison is that anyone who's living in Mumbai is smoking 5 cigarettes a day, whether he's doing it with tobacco or without tobacco. That is the question. But you don't have a choice. You're also a smoker today. The lungs of the children of Mumbai are like the lungs of smokers.
A problem that Rohini Banerjee understands all too well. Her son has had a recurring respiratory infection. His symptoms display every time the pollution levels go up. For the past 2 years now, a major construction project has been underway, less than 300 meters from their home.
Congratulations, Mister. We started feeling the impact of the pollution when my son was around 2.5. When we'd have any outdoor activity and stuff like that, we'd get back, when he'll run around and stuff and come back, he would definitely that night, have a cough. We started having more frequent trips to the doctors. We were put on cough syrups, and there have been instances when he was, given inhalers.
Mumbai's local government estimates over 6,000 construction projects are currently underway. Air pollution is extremely high. Fine dust particles, PM2.5, are so minuscule that they are not visible to the naked eye. They can penetrate deep into the lungs and enter the bloodstream. In December 2024, levels exceeded the 200 mark in some areas, making the air extremely unhealthy. A recent study by the Center for Chronic Disease Control found that even moderate exposure to these pollutants increases the risk of diseases like diabetes by 23% in urban centers. Diabetes is a chronic disease that occurs when blood sugar levels are high and the pancreas secretes less insulin for breaking it down. Over time, this can damage the nerves, eyes, kidneys, and cardiovascular system. Several factors play a role in the development of type 2 diabetes: DNA, lifestyle, and environmental conditions. Dr. Rajiv Koval is a diabetologist. He has worked in Mumbai for over 2 decades. In the past 3 years, he has been seeing younger patients with complications from diabetes.
The inflammation which is caused by poor quality index, especially of a PM less than 2.5, causes a sort of systemic inflammation in the body, which leads to what is called as oxidative stress, which actually causes the decompensation of the pancreatic beta cells. You make lesser insulin, the inflammation causes insulin resistance.
So it appears clear. Inflammation caused by air pollution can both damage insulin-producing cells and inhibit the body's response to insulin.
So the traditional risk factors which we know, obesity, sedentary lifestyle, and wrong eating, have always been there. But when you add this external risk factor in terms of pollution and air quality index, it kind of is a synergy inside our body and finally leads to premature kind of development of diabetes.
47-year-old Mervyn Fernandez is one such patient who was recently diagnosed with premature diabetes. Mervyn has always had a balanced lifestyle with a regular exercise routine and a healthy diet. It was therefore a shock for him that he was diabetic, likely accelerated by his exposure to the polluted air around him.
How can we take care of ourselves? The air we breathe is only impure. So if that impure air is coming into my body and affecting me, I don't know what will happen to the generation which is coming, my children. I fear for them.
The authorities are seeking to mitigate the problem. 32 air quality index monitoring systems have been set up across Mumbai by the State Pollution Control Board. The board says it monitors pollution closely and has issued strict guidelines to real estate developers.
There should be a barricade of 25 feet and nets should be there. There should be a fogger type system where the dust particle setters. There should be a CCTV. There should be a very less noise while digging the excavation. All this dust-free atmosphere should be there. This should be monitored by 24/7 by the project proponent. So these are the exhaustive guidelines we have given to all the builders.
But even though closure notices are issued to construction sites that violate standards, in most cases they have little effect and incur no punitive action. Rohini Banerjee says the authorities are failing the people.
Another 10 years, this entire generation is going to basically, pay the price for it, and it's going to be a huge price. There's no government which is going to be able to fix this.
But could a solution come from the private sector? Respira Living Sciences, a climate tech startup from Pune, has built an open source platform called Atlas AQ that provides precise pollution data at a very localized level.
Once you have per square kilometer accurate data, right from the bottom up, which is the citizens, the community groups, citizen groups, they will start mobilizing actions, and the top down folks, will have an ability to focus on specific parts where the problem is.
The company is calling for action that targets the precise areas where pollution is worst. It says a decision by the city to invest most of a €20 million grant from the National Clean Air Program in electric buses just isn't effective enough.
Do we say that electric buses are the answer to the air quality problem? Almost everyone says no. 200 buses were easy to sanction, but they are not solving the problem. Money has got now spent. So we feel that hyperlocal is going to let the focus be kept where the problem is.
In the meantime, Rohini Banerjee is doing what she can. She has set up an air purifier in her home to protect herself and her family. And every time she steps out with her son, she ensures that he's all masked up. As long as policymakers fail to implement effective solutions, people have no choice but to protect themselves as best as they can.
Speaking of health, what we eat and what we breathe are probably at the very core of our physical health. Imagine your food reaching directly to your plate from the farm. No toxins, no chemicals, just fresh, clean, organic food. Well, that sounds like a dream to me, or at the very best, a budget-breaking exercise. Let's head to Tamil Nadu, to Auroville, an experimental township, to meet an unconventional farmer who is fighting climate change, one delicious plate of fresh food at a time.
We are free from diabetes, heart disease, and high blood pressure. Do you know why? Because we consume the organic food of our country. We also have our own hotel based on the farm-to-plate concept.
Many may have seen one of Krishna Mckinsey's social media videos in which he talks about organic farming in Tamil. At age 19, Krishna came to Auroville from England and began practicing organic farming. Now, some 30 years later, he has found his most important social motto.
When I came, I had different ideas. But here, life is very simple. Farming, planting trees, and building small houses.
This is his food forest, 3 acres in size, a diverse and self-sustaining ecosystem.
We've planted a food forest here with many trees. These trees are our permanent crops. They are the backbone of the forest. Inside we have crops of medium duration. Then we have plants that grow and can be harvested over a period of 7 months. We also have creepers, tomatoes, brinjals, ladybugs, squash and bottle gourd. Then there are the greens, which are edible weeds. Edible weeds are the stuff our culture is made of.
Solitude Farm Cafe, Mackenzie's restaurant, uses fresh vegetables and fruits from the food forest. He calls this approach farm to plate. For him, turning organic produce into healthy, wholesome dishes has always been a lifelong dream.
We do this because it's good for your health. You can watch your mother cooking every day with the supplies that are available at home. We follow the same concept here. We plan to use according to availability.
Slicing, chopping, plucking. About 10 people work in the restaurant. Mala is the star of the kitchen.
The final step. So what do we have, Mala?
We have brown rice, Krishna.
Sambar.
And we have plantain with spinach curry, green chutney, ragi adai, and this is green papaya salad. Organically grown food, locally produced. Mackenzie sees this as a solution to environmental and health problems.
If you look at the typical diet of Americans and British people, you'll find that their food is often grown in one country and processed in another. So that food has to travel thousands of kilometers. Industrially produced food is a major contributor to climate change. By using locally grown food, we can not only reduce our impact on the climate, but also prevent lifestyle diseases. This is the most direct way we can combat climate change.
Food forests can produce high yields in a small space thanks to multi-layer cultivation. Companies and schools often own some land. Krishna Mackenzie advises them.
If there are 5 acres of free land, anyone can build a farm on it. With a kitchen, you can prepare the food grown on your own farm. This concept can also be implemented in hospitals and universities. This is the essence of the farm-to-plate concept.
Mackenzie wants a whole generation of young people to benefit from this.
If the Tamil Nadu government introduces a variety of traditional vegetables and greens in its midday meal program, such as plantain stalks, bottle gourd, crested gourd, moringa leaves and other local produce, they would be nurturing a generation of healthy and creative individuals.
That generation,
this initiative would foster a sense of collective identity and could spark a revolution. A revolution not born of conflict, a revolution that comes from the heart.
But Sattu Purachi from heart.
Living next to a landfill breathing toxic air is the harsh reality of thousands in Delhi. But a group of women is stepping up and changing this, from spreading awareness regarding air pollution to improving working conditions for waste pickers and construction workers. But how are these women bringing about a change in such adverse conditions?
This is the Bhalswa landfill. At about 32 hectares, it's the second largest dump site in India's capital, New Delhi. More than 200,000 people live along its perimeter. For the last 25 years, Hema has lived and worked here as a waste picker.
I used to go to work, then come home, send my child to school and do all the chores. But for the past year, my health hasn't been good. So I stopped going to work as often. I used to work 20 to 25 days a month, but now I work less.
For people who live this close to the landfill, even the air they breathe is toxic. In a city that has some of the most polluted air in the world, improper waste disposal makes things much worse. Hema is part of a group of 40 women who have been learning about this issue and the reasons for their health problems. They're planning to reach out to the thousands of other women who do similar work. The group meets regularly with local representatives and conducts public hearings on social, medical, and environmental issues.
I think this is extremely important to have this kind of community level engagement, because typically what happens is that people are not aware of the risk. They are unwillingly exposed to high level of air pollution, heat, both outdoor, indoor. So the first step definitely is that creating awareness among them. And some of these awareness programs I am aware of are also providing some individual level strategy to really adapt to the situations.
Few people are more aware of the need for these strategies than Ruxana. She grew up in a family of waste pickers and has first-hand experience of the health problems faced by the women, things that researchers have also seen in medical tests.
In these PF tests itself, the pulmonary function tests, we found that waste picker women were about 3.6 times more likely to have worsened lung conditions, and Safai Karmcharis were 6 times likely to have worsened lung functions as compared to men. And because they're cooking indoors and they're cooking on biomass fuels, or chulhas as we call it.
Ruxana and the team at the Chintan Environmental Action and Research Group have set up air quality monitoring devices across the neighborhood. This helps local women plan their work and daily activities. They avoid working in the waste dump when the monitor flashes red and take precautions like wearing masks even outside of work. Back at home, the women have taken steps to cook with less polluting fuels.
The women here use biomass stoves. But when we heard about a government program to provide free gas cylinders, we looked into how to access the scheme. We helped at least 30 to 35 people in the colony obtain gas cylinders.
In 2022, the World Air Quality Report ranked Delhi fourth in a list of the world's 50 most polluted cities. Although air pollution affects everyone, workers in the informal sector suffer the most. Major infrastructure projects and construction sites rely on low-paid workers who have little to no protection from pollution on the job. Their homes are also near the construction sites, so they get little respite from the pollution.
Pouring cement always created a lot of dust and it affected me. It went into our mouth, but we had no choice.
Construction sector workers here are also organizing and retraining to work in safer jobs. Mini Raj took part in an introductory workshop run by an NGO to learn how to use the proper safety equipment. She says it made a difference.
I took part in this training for 15 days, where I was taught first and foremost what safety equipment I need to protect my health.
The efforts of women like Hema, Ruxana and Minnie may be a drop in the ocean, but they hope that over time they will help raise awareness and promote better working conditions for all informal workers in Delhi.
In just 3 years, deaths due to extreme weather events rose by 18% in India. And yet again, these disasters hit the most vulnerable the hardest. And not just in India, even in Africa. In Mozambique, in the southeast of the continent, Cyclone Idai was a devastating reminder of the same. For people with disabilities, survival can depend on early warning and inclusive planning. A survivor has turned her experiences into action to ensure that no one gets left behind.
Cyclone Idai hit Mozambique's coast in March 2019, packing winds of over 200 kilometers an hour. Helena Dorigo lives in Beira, which took a direct hit. Some windows were flying off. We tried to hold them down with ropes, but some still flew away. The roof blew off too. It was one of the worst tropical cyclones ever recorded in Africa and Mozambique's worst humanitarian crisis. Over 1,500 people died. Many of the victims were people with disabilities, like Helena, who had polio as a child. For her, family support was vital. If I was alone, I don't know what would have happened. There were 11 of us in total. When you have lots of people together, you don't feel so afraid. On your own, you think, I'm going to die. But there were so many of us, and we had shelter. We kept talking, and Helena is brave. Luckily, the living room of the house withstood the winds and gave protection to the family. Helena was stuck there for 3 weeks.
Nossas ruas ficaram todas.
Our streets were all flooded and filled with stones, metal sheets from roofs, tree trunks. The road was full of rubble, so there was no way to get me out of the house with a wheelchair.
Não tinham como me tirar daqui de casa.
It would have been impossible.
Não seria possível.
To this day, Helena's house still bears the marks of Cyclone Idai. After the tragedy, she opted to become a specialist in inclusive disaster preparedness. Now she works as a facilitator for an NGO. It's a job that's growing in importance globally. As the planet warms, disasters like Cyclone Idai will become more intense and more frequent. The most vulnerable in society often suffer the most in these climate disasters. People with disabilities are up to 4 times more likely to die in a natural disaster. So the United Nations says they must be involved in prevention.
We understand the situation of ourselves better. Our lived experiences cannot be underestimated. But apart from that, we are experts in many other areas and contribute and enrich the outcome of discussions, planning, implementation, and development arena, bringing the human rights issues in the center.
A UN survey last year showed the past decade has brought little progress in disability inclusion during disasters. 84% of people with disabilities worldwide say they are not prepared for disasters. In such events, early warnings can give people time to prepare or flee. This can save many lives, but information needs to be distributed in accessible formats and through multiple channels. In each country, there are very different ways of reaching people with disabilities. In Mozambique, for example, a variety of methods have been used since Cyclone Idai. We have community radio stations. We also have door-to-door information drives. Then there are pamphlets being given out in the communities. And we also work with associations, which is a key area. This is part of Helena's work. She visits communities to provide training on managing disabilities and preparing for extreme weather. If another cyclone hits Mozambique, simple yet vital instructions like where to get information and where to seek shelter could make the difference between life and death. But her work is also about getting to know these communities. Not knowing the size and characteristics of the disabled population is a big problem. The UN estimates that 1 in 6 people have some form of disability. But without quality information, it's impossible to prepare for a disaster. However, collecting such data can be complicated.
Because of erroneous impressions, stigma, and discrimination, sometimes persons with disabilities are hidden. The families don't want others to know that they exist. We are now together with organizations of persons with disabilities, encouraging states to ensure that in every survey, in every census, persons with disabilities are included.
This is a cyclone simulation exercise organized by authorities and NGOs in Mozambique. One of the objectives is to teach emergency responders to recognize the needs of disabled people. Sometimes they get sent to hospitals instead of shelters, for example, because people misunderstand their condition. Disaster response must be inclusive and take into account the needs of people with different types of disabilities. The best way to do that is to listen to them. So risk and disaster management committees have been set up in local communities. They all have at least one member with disability.
Nós fazemos parte.
We are part of this society. So there needs to be inclusion in every sense.
Em todos os sentidos.
If we are there talking, it's easier for them to remember us.
É fácil eles lembrarem-se de nós, né?
It's like a shout, saying that we are here.
Dizer que estamos aqui.
The inclusion of people with disabilities in risk and disaster management has the power to save lives. It also shows us the huge potential we can unleash when we remove barriers and create opportunities.
As we saw, health and safety are becoming increasingly important in the face of climate change. Do you know of any such efforts that are being made to ensure this? Do let us know. You can email us or reach out to me directly on my social media handle. Thank you for joining us. I will see you next week with more such reports. Until then, take care. Goodbye. Namaskar.